Very Bad Wizards is a podcast with a philosopher, my dad, and a psychologist, Dave Pizarro, having an informal discussion about issues in science and ethics. Please note that the discussion contains bad words that I'm not allowed to say, and knowing my dad, some very inappropriate jokes.
Oh, I just wish I understood why. Why I should care.
The Galen boss has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have. Pay no attention to that man. Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.
Welcome to Very Bad Wizards. I'm Tamler Summers from the University of Houston. Dave, we said we weren't going to talk about the whole University of Austin thing, but I mean, you got to be fucking kidding, right?
Where's your self-control, man? Where's your self-control?
I put it off as long as I could.
I'll give you this break. So yeah, I didn't want to talk about it because I feel we can talk about why later, but really, like, what I don't want to be is part of the problem. But here's where I'll give you a pass. It's in Texas, and I feel like you guys should have a little bit of pride about somebody just setting up fake shop in your backyard.
I mean, we had we have a lot of that, like Elon Musk,
Yeah.
So we're used to that. And we're not that proud lately of our state legislature and what their priorities are. So, yeah. No, I guess I feel a little more defensive of the academic institution, as not that I think it's perfect. I don't have any problems with it, but oh man.
Are you really just sad that they didn't invite you to be on the advisory board?
Well, we were talking a little bit about this before, and I just don't think, and I really, I could be wrong. I invite them to prove me wrong. I don't think there's a price they could pay me to be a part of this. It's too lame. It's the lamest thing that they've ever done. And that's a high bar, and it's lamer than that. I can't even think of the second lamest thing.
Yeah, it is lame. So here, I didn't want to talk about it because I don't want to fan the flames of a culture war that I don't particularly think is productive for anybody. But just talking about this in terms of being a professor, this has all of the marks of a grift.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly, this isn't a funny conversation, but I'm disappointed in some of these people for being on this website, on the advisory board or whatever.
Like Jonathan Haidt, here's a tweet that he did. Talk about disappointed. I don't have anything against him.
No, I like Jonathan.
Here's the most hope-giving event in higher ed in years. The launch of Austin U, a new U constructed around the telos of truth. I want my kids to go there. I am proud to be on the advisory board. Now, if I was one of John Haidt's kids, that's just like saying he doesn't love me. I'm not loved by my father. It's like, Brian Cox in Succession.
I feel like if I even told my daughter that there was a university I wanted her to go to because of the telos of anything, she would just slap me.
Oh my God.
So I assume people know what we're talking about, but
yes, but let's just say and we're not devoting the whole opening segment to this.
No, and I'm actually a little confused as to what it is.
Right, because it's not an accredited university.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist as a space.
There are no classes. There's no physical space yet. There are no classes. There are no degrees. There's proposed.
Well, yes, including in summer of 2022. Maybe this is what John Haidt wants his children to go to. A course called Forbidden Courses. Or... this is what I mean by it's breathtakingly lame.
Yeah.
Forbidden courses.
Real disappointing. Forbidden courses where we'll talk about the gender wage gap. Maybe not being entirely due to sexism. Maybe.
So it will. I think it has somehow an MA. I don't know if it's a real MA or like what I did after college, like a master's of mixology at Harvard, which was essentially me doing a 2-day bartending course, and they called it that. So it might be that. I don't know. Like, is it like a real master's? Like, can you give a real master's if you're not accredited?
Well, even if it is, it's a master's in leadership, so it's not really. Okay, let's say who's affiliated with this. Hold on, I'm trying to pull up the.
So I actually looked just before this podcast recording for the first time at the thing that announced it on Bari Weiss's Substack.
Right.
And that's where they give the list. So our project began with a small gathering of those concerned about the state of higher education. Niall Ferguson, Bari Weiss, Heather Haying, Joe Lonsdale, Arthur Brooks, and I, and we have since been joined by many others, including the brave professors mentioned above, because they talk about Kathleen Stock and Peter fucking Boghossian. Kathleen Stock, Dorian Abbott, Peter Boghossian. We count among our numbers university presidents, Robert Zimmer, Larry Summers, John News. And do you see this ideological diversity just shining through here? Gordon G. and leading academics such as Steven Pinker, Deirdre McCloskey, Leon Cass, Jonathan Haidt, Glenn Lowry, Joshua Cass, Vicky Sullivan, Jeffrey Stone, Bill McClay, and Tyler Cowan. And then there's, of course, Andrew Sullivan, Caitlin Flanagan, who's just been on a roll in terms of Ayan Hirsch-Ali, Sohrab Ahmari, Stacey Hawk, Jonathan Roach, and Nadine Strauss, and Rob Henderson. I don't know some of those people. I know David Mamet.
Yeah, that's what Mamet. Why David Mamet?
You know, I great playwright. You know, ton of respect for him. Love some of his movies, but this is not surprising if you know his political views.
I did not.
It's funny that they like. So this is what they then say. Our backgrounds and experiences are diverse. Our political views differ. Not really, though. Do they differ? Like, a little bit, like on the margins. But
this is the God's honest truth. I don't care about the politics. What I am insulted by is the implication that at our universities, we've abandoned the notion of truth and that they are somehow picking it up when it really is just like 3 or 4 political issues that they're opposed to. Like it's as if, like, you know, genetics research has been going shitty at Cornell because of fuck you for implying that.
Yeah. They just want a place where they can talk about race and IQ, gender differences,
and woke people.
And woke. You know what there isn't also is any anti-Israel. Like, that's not like the ideological diversity that they can tolerate.
Right.
The anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, like, you know, that has no place at Austin University.
Did you hear Bari Weiss get a mention in the latest episode of Curb?
Oh yeah, but what was it?
It was the Jewy Hulu guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Who was just like like doing the Jew thing too much for Larry, and like he was like J to J, and he at the end when Larry's leaving, he's like, Larry, come over to house for Shabbos dinner anytime. We just had Bari Weiss over.
It's so funny. Talk about cancel. Like she's tried to cancel so many like pro-Palestinian voices in her time, and the idea that Austin University is going to have like Norm Finkelstein or something like that, someone who's genuinely fucking canceled. Is there going to be a course like apartheid and Israel? Like, what are the differences, if any? Like, that's not going to be that. That's why this is such fucking bullshit. Okay, let me read the next sentence. What unites us, in spite of the vast political differences between all those people, but what unites us is a common dismay at the state of modern academia and a recognition that we can no longer wait for the cavalry, and so we must be the cavalry.
What does that mean? What does that mean? I don't understand.
It's like it's so like I'm so embarrassed. Like, I would be so embarrassed to be a part of this. Like, I said this on Twitter, but it's like the British Office, where it's funny, but it's also just like also hard to watch. The mismatch between the grandiosity versus like the reality is just it's
a
too much.
pretty website. Well, if Tamler.
Yeah.
If it receives the support of the people, and you can easily go to the support page and
Yes, right.
you can actually become, there are like different tiers. It's like their Patreon. You can be you can give $500,000 to support 10 faculty fellows.
Wow.
You can give $400,000. Oh wait, this is just how much it's going to cost. Yeah. $3 million per named chair. $25 to $100 million for land in Austin for the campus. I think it's very hard to start a new university at all. And it's really hard. If you have ever sat on any committee, you probably have, where you have to like get your accreditation stuff in order.
Yeah.
It's hard. And it takes a lot of energy, a lot of administration, and years. And I don't know that they'll have the steam. I don't doubt that they can raise the money, but I don't know that they'll have the steam to do it. And honestly, I think the future of these kinds of universities is going to be online mostly.
Yeah, I think that's what it'll turn out to be.
Yeah. They're explicitly trying to not be online. They want a physical presence.
Right. Yeah.
But
And I think like there's just not enough like students for this. Like there's not a lot of 20-year-olds that are going to want to go to this. I don't think.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess so. Like most of the demographic that's about like 25 to 35 is the one that would really want to go, but they've already either gone to college or either not or not gone to college.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they go just like because they want to meet whoever. Peter Boghossian. And look, it's not that because, you have people, this has received a lot of well-justified ridicule and like it deserves more than it's gotten. But people have said they are like raising real issues about the academia. And in some sense, that's absolutely true. There isn't enough ideological diversity on campuses. I think there is a kind of a climate of not fear, but just people feeling like, I don't want to say something that will get a lot of woke people getting mad at me. Now, I think a lot of that is because these same people have just been instilling so much fear in the professors, these kinds of centrist professors, like just telling them that if they use a pronoun wrong, they'll be canceled and before some sort of committee, and they'll have, get like, or the subject of some Title IX lawsuit or something like that. And all that's bullshit. Like none of that stuff, it happens, but so unbelievably rarely that it wouldn't be something that a sane person would be living in fear of. But setting that aside, setting the exaggerated like paranoia that has been created around this issue, there is actually a problem that they are, that they allude to, even if they don't correctly describe the scope of it. But this is not the solution to this in any way. Any faculty, just any department faculty, is more diverse politically, ideologically than that group of people.
Yeah, it seems to have like just the opposite of its intended effect. If the intended effect is to promote, whatever heterodox beliefs are, like it seems to be just pushing people in one direction. Look, like I agree with you about the exaggeration of the problem and about there being a problem. Like it's not. I know that a lot of listeners, don't email us about this, but I know that they want
really
they like
don't.
to argue. Yeah, I know they like to argue about how bad the situation is, but I'm not denying that it's like a lot of it is draining and annoying. But like I was telling you on the phone when we were talking last night, I literally have spent more time taking this shitty online driver's instruction course to lower my insurance than I have the whole year even sitting on a committee talking about diversity. It's like, I just haven't. And sure, like you could say maybe my experience isn't representative, but don't deny me that it is an experience.
and also, like when I say that, which is totally true for me, like I don't have to deal with this stuff pretty much ever. And I don't know, I feel like we kind of say what we want on this podcast without getting a lot of shit for it.
No, the most shit we get is from the centrists.
Exactly, from these people. Yeah, like I can't even remember the last time we got shit for like defending Dave Chappelle or something like that. But like people can say to me, well, you live in Texas. It's different in Texas. Like I get this sometimes, but you're literally at fucking Cornell. You're in the Northeast. You're like at an Ivy League, the elite of the elite kind of institution where this stuff, even when they pull back and say, okay, fine, maybe this isn't happening at the University of Arkansas, but it is happening at fucking all the like really good Northeast and California schools. But it's not. Even there, it's not.
No, it's
That's
not.
the thing.
And even in my city is like extremely liberal, like alarmingly on the left, and it's just not. But people don't hear this stuff. Like I was telling you, there were faculty members who wanted to do this curriculum where we'd have to like professors would have to take diversity classes. It went for a vote and it got shut down. Like but that doesn't make the headlines because, of course, why would it? It shouldn't make the headlines.
Right. Because it's just an internal little thing that you guys had to work out.
Right. It's, what happens is that they're p-hacking all of these stories, right? So every day, nothing happens to me about diversity. We talk. I want to encourage diversity. So I'm director of graduate studies. Certainly, we have discussions about like recruiting more, having a more diverse student body and diversity in fact, but that's not that controversial. I think everybody is okay trying to make an effort in that direction. But it's just not. Most days go by and it doesn't cross my mind. Like what crosses my mind is like the stress on my students, like the all of the other committees that I have to be on. Like right now we've had a hard time at Cornell. There was these bomb threats, and then there was a shooting yesterday. Like all that stuff takes up all of my time. I don't worry that I'm accidentally going to say the wrong thing in class. I don't.
When all seems lost, you have to protect the light. Cicero protected it, and John Adams found it, and now and I are free. Once again, the light is sputtering out. Join us. Freedom won't die on our watch. David.
I'm actually curious of all of the truths that people think are being suppressed. Like if somebody just wrote them out and posted them.
Yeah,
I would like
think?
to know.
Right.
I would like to know what's being suppressed. Is it that there is a relationship between race and IQ? I don't think so. I talk about this in intro psych.
Yeah.
It's not like I would like to know. Is it that I can't say blacks anymore? Like is that the concern?
The blacks?
Yeah. I can know like I'm not trying to make light of this. We've been pushed to bitching about these people because we don't have enough material to bitch about the left right now.
Right, exactly. And certainly not in academia. Like if you want to bitch about this and have me be more sympathetic, it would be media, like Hollywood, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like I still think probably the problem there is more exaggerated, and maybe somebody who's actually in it could tell me it's actually not that bad. But I do know some people who are in it, and they seem like they're a little they're concerned about it.
Okay, I actually have here. I'm gonna actually raise something that we'll finally get back our Sam Harris listeners.
They're all gone already.
It has annoyed me to no end. The amount of TV shows that explicitly try for diversity in such a heavy-handed way as to make the writing unbearable.
Yeah.
And I love that in the latest Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes, did you notice that
Yes.
the Netflix offices and the Hulu offices have essentially the same four people?
Exactly.
It's so brilliant.
It's so funny. I didn't even notice it at first. Like Eliza had to point it out to me because she's already like more attuned to that stuff, but it's so funny. And I love that it's just funny that it's in the Netflix office, like
right.
those people. But then it's also in the Hulu office.
In the Hulu office. Logo and everything. Yeah. Like, I really want to be privy to how they got that arrangement made, because the gag is that there is, in both cases, like the white guy is the head of the meeting, of the head of the network, and then there's three people on a couch that are sort of say a couple of words, but they all represent some, in one case it's like a handicapped black woman and like a queer person, and I don't know, but it's like it's so on the nose in the funny kind of way.
And again, you know what? Nobody's nobody's saying cancel fucking Curb Your Enthusiasm. You know, like I think even there's some self-awareness about like,
Right.
well, yeah, it is a little like that, isn't it? And nobody, I haven't seen a single person bitch about that.
Right. Maybe at some point we should talk about this. There is the growing divide in not that Rotten Tomatoes should be how you judge things, but the growing divide in Rotten Tomatoes critic scores and audience scores, and what that says about, that's more concerning to me than all of the university bullshit that people complain about.
But you know what? Like people are saying, like I won't ever know if this is true, but the Eternals suffers from this. People say that Why the Last Man, that adaptation of a graphic novel series.
I love that graphic novel.
And I actually read that graphic novel, also like it. People say that both of them got derailed by the wokeness. The wokeness. And, you know, I don't know. I haven't seen either of them. Sounds plausible, though, to me, to some extent. Although there's a lot of bad TV shows and movies. To
me, bad writing is bad writing. There is a difference between having characters who incidentally happen to be black or gay and announcing them as like in this sort of just a heavy-handed way as like the gay one.
Right. But I want to stress that this is not like, it's not like that in academia to anywhere. Like if you are somebody, even like, cause I have friends that I've been talking to this about, and like the perception they get from like just reading The Atlantic or this bullshit and the Substacks they subscribe to is nothing like how it is on actual college campuses. And that's true both for, you know, like the University of Houston, which is I love it, one of the most diverse and wonderful universities in the country, but, you know, not somewhere that people could call like, you know, a woke enclave. But it's also true even in Cornell, and it's just not like that, you know, with the possible exception of certain departments or maybe certain whole colleges like Hampshire or something like that, where they've always been like that.
Yeah. And look, people will always be able to find something, like, you know, there are mockable moments, like the class that somebody co-taught on whether black holes were racist. So don't send me those articles, because I know, but it's just really like, believe me, like
we live it. We're actually like live it. You can't tell us that what we're living, this is our lived experience. And you know what? There are definitely cringeable and, you know, like the woke moments. There are examples they can bring that are really just, that's bad. That's ludicrous. That's lame. But nothing as bad as we can no longer wait for the cavalry. So we must be the cavalry.
It's histrionic, is what that is.
It's just,
it's like, it is so dramatic. It's so dramatic that all of the pictures of the founding members are in black and white.
and it's just a collection of drama queens that want to be able to talk about race and IQ. That's too. You know, I was telling you that Cicero, who I've read a little bit of, is also a little bit of a drama queen. So in some ways, it is kind of like appropriate. In the spirit. But Cicero at least was kind of forced to commit suicide by the Romans, and so actually had to die for it instead of just resign from a position because they couldn't wait to be, because the institution wouldn't fire them, so they had to just resign. And
I hope his suicide was glorious.
He wanted it to be. All right.
We weren't going to talk about this.
This segment didn't happen. Should we even talk about what we're going to talk about, or save it?
I think we should save it. This is enough. Yeah.
All right. But I do have something funny to do, but we'll save that for another time. All right. Obviously, we didn't talk about like the main segment.
Right.
Already.
We
so
never
what
got
are we
past the
talking
opening
about,
question.
David?
We're talking about built on a recent. We're talking about a recent article called "Why Evolutionary Psychology Should Abandon Modularity," but I think the conversation will be more broadly about modularity and psychology and what it is.
This is not necessarily something that would be a forbidden course, but
it borders on. evolutionary psychology.
That's true.
I feel like sometimes they're just out to justify gender differences.
Okay. Yeah. Just good. We have some forbidden course material coming up in the next segment. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by one of our favorites, GiveWell.org. Donating money to help people can be a wonderful and selfless act, but how can you feel confident that your donations are improving or saving lives effectively? The first question all students ask when you teach Peter Singer.
Stage one.
Stage one. Singer stage one. You could do weeks of research to find the charities that are out there, what programs they run, how effective these programs are, and how the charity might use your money. Or you could just visit givewell.org, and there you'll get a short, vetted list of the best charities they've found at improving or saving lives per dollar.
Yeah, GiveWell spends over 20,000 hours each year researching charitable organizations. Like I said many times, they are spreadsheet nerds who are dedicated. They've dedicated their nerdiness to finding these charities. And they only recommend a few of the highest impact evidence-backed charities they've found. Over 50,000 donors have used GiveWell to donate more than $750 million. We're proud to say that the Very Bad Wizards listenership really kicked this off. Really, we take credit for for this.
We have like over 200,000 of those dollars come from our listeners.
Yes, our generous listeners. So rigorous evidence suggests that these donations will save tens of thousands of lives and improve the lives of millions more. And here's the best part. GiveWell is absolutely free. They want to empower as many donors as possible to make informed decisions about their donations. They publish all of their research and recommendations on their site for free. No sign-up required. You could say that they're open science, but without the attitude. They allocate your tax-deductible donation to the charity you choose without taking a cut at all.
Yeah, and when I give to GiveWell, at least the last few times, I've chosen of their, I think, 9 charities that they vetted, cash transfers for extreme poverty. This is a charity where they just give cash to very poor families, mostly in Africa, to spend as they like. And these participants make investments in business and agriculture assets, housing and education. It is very cost effective, and it helps people living in dire poverty who live on less than $3,700 per year.
That's cool. I use the cheat code. Basically, I just let GiveWell pick the top charities and allocate my money accordingly, which is really the lazy man's way out. But I trust GiveWell to do this, so I just set it up for the top charity picks and let them do what thou wilt with my money.
So here's something cool. If you've never donated to GiveWell's recommended charities before, you can have your donation matched up to $250 before the end of the year, as long as matching funds last. $250 will be matched of your donation as long as matching funds last before the end of the year. So to claim your match, go to givewell.org and pick podcast and enter Very Bad Wizards at checkout. Just once again, go to givewell.org and pick podcast and enter Very Bad Wizards at checkout. Make sure they know you heard about GiveWell from Very Bad Wizards to get your donation matched. Thank you to GiveWell for sponsoring this episode.
And I
Welcome back to Very Bad Wizards. This is the time of the episode where we like to take a moment and pause and thank everybody who has contributed to the community, contributed to the discussion, contributed to our morale, really, by just supporting us. And one of the most important ways in which you support us is you talk to us, you email us, you contact us, you engage in discussion with us. If you want to be a part of that, you can email us at verybadwizards@gmail.com. You can tweet to us at Tamler or at Peas or at verybadwizards. You can engage on the lively discussions in the cantankerous fuck group of Reddit, the reddit.com/r/verybadwizards, where you can read some like-minded criticism of us often. some groupthink talking points that just smear us every once in a while.
The one exception about how we love to receive your emails concerns our opening segment topic.
Yes, don't email us about this week's opening segment. You can follow us on Instagram, where you can see the release of every episode. You can please rate us on Apple Podcasts. If you listen there, we always appreciate getting those ratings, getting those reviews, especially when they're good, 5-star reviews. But yeah, that helps us also get seen, hopefully, by other people who might not know about us. You can listen to us at Spotify, subscribe there, and just tell a friend who has any sort of similar sensibilities as you. If you like it, tell a friend to listen to us. But thank you for all the ways, that you reach out to us.
We really, really appreciate that. And if you would like to support us in more tangible ways, you can find all the different ways at our support page on the website. You can give us a one-time or recurring donation on PayPal. You can get some merch, some pretty cool merch, some mugs, some T-shirts, hoodies, baby bibs, all sorts of things. And you can become one of our Patreon supporters. We love our patrons. We try to put bonus episodes up somewhat regularly. We just put one up recently on Pine Barrens, and we have some other ideas coming up for this holiday season for episode ideas for the bonus episodes. That's at the $2 and up per episode. At $5 and up, you get to vote on a topic for one of our main segments. And actually, I think we're about ready to open that up, get some ideas from all our patrons, and then have our $5 and up supporters vote on it. $5 and up people also get Dave's intro lectures. One day, perhaps, a couple lectures that I did during the pandemic. And then also, you get our Brothers Karamazov series directly to your podcast feed. So that's at the $5. And finally, the $10 and up, we've been releasing these Ask Us Anything videos that actually have been kind of fun to do. I don't know how much staying power it has, and if our most generous tiered listeners have any other ideas. But at least for now, with the questions we're getting, we're having fun doing those too. So
yeah, definitely.
Thanks for all of your support. It means so much to us. It keeps us going at every level, and we are really thrilled that you have decided to support this community. Thank you.
All right, welcome back to Very Bad Wizards, and we're going to talk about something even more controversial. At least in cognitive science. Today we're talking about this article, Why Evolutionary Psychology Should Abandon Modularity. Was this a neuroskeptic tweet?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm 80% sure that that's why I put it in the Slack.
Yeah. But essentially, this article is about this debate that's been going on for the last, 20, 30 years about basically the organization of the mind. How do we describe the way that the mind is organized? Is it modular? And I'll get to what that is. Or is it not? And there has been sort of this beef between some cognitive psychologists, cognitive scientists, and some evolutionary psychologists who are, so this article argues, talking past each other in this debate. But one reason I want to do it is because you and I, we've never really talked about modularity. And I think it's actually a really fascinating part of the whole, question about psychology and how the mind is organized. And it's something that I've been reading about since, I think Paul Bloom first suggested that I read Fodor's book, Modularity and Mind. And so I just wanted to talk about it. But
Yeah.
what is your, how did you come across this? Is this something that in philosophy people talk about? I mean,
Well, I'm not a philosopher of mind, but I did, I did a lot of philosophy of biology in graduate school. So we're talking year 2000 to 2005.
when we met for the first time?
Exactly, right. So Cosmides and 2B. So I think of modularity of mind more in the evolutionary psych terms as, like the cheater detector module.
Right. You actually mentioned cheater detection the other day.
Yeah. And I feel like that's got to be outdated. So I'm actually excited to learn more about it.
Right. Okay, cool. So I'm going to try to give a brief background about this whole debate and where it started. And I will say right now, everything I think I learned first from Paul Bloom in this cognitive science seminar.
So you're going to just blame him.
I'm just going to blame him for anything I get wrong.
Yeah.
But okay, so in the history of psychology, in the 50s, 60s, behaviorism had really taken hold a lot. And associationistic theories of how the mind is organized were dominant. And what this meant was that there's theories that say the mind is one thing. It's one big thing. And there are theories that say the mind is a bunch of little things. General process, behavioristic, associationistic accounts really want to say that the mind is like a general purpose learning machine. And what it does is it builds up associations that it picks up from the environment, but it doesn't require any real specialization. So everything we learn because it's just a modern version of empiricism, right, versus nativism. Everything we learn is learned through experience. And that experience it organizes the mind over time merely through inputs that we're getting from the environment. And so the idea is, for instance, the behaviorists believed that, either through classical conditioning, like Pavlovian conditioning, or through Auburn conditioning, like reward and punishment learning, the mind could tie two things together. And from that, we would build up literally everything we know, including, language and all that stuff. There's modern incarnations of this that are a bit more sophisticated, and they say we're like Bayesians or whatever, but everything we learn is through statistical learning. We don't really have any specialized learning mechanism. I mean, we don't have any super differentiated specialized modules in the mind. What we have is just a general purpose computer. It's just like a processor that we have up there. Jerry Fodor, who made the notion of modularity popular, in 1983 publishes this book called Modularity of Mind. And in it, he sort of takes these associationistic, monolithic general purpose views of the mind. He takes them to task, and he tries to propose what he thinks is a better way of understanding how the mind is organized. And he makes an analogy to organs in the body. So he says, look, the mind is composed of a bunch of subunits, each of those subunits being in charge of just one thing. So you have a visual processing modules, you have language modules. So Chomsky famously proposed that we have this language acquisition device that might be modular. And they all pay attention to only specific information in the environment and process that information alone, and then pop out the solution, or pop out whatever the output is. And so organs was one metaphor, but also phrenology. He made an appeal to he said the central idea of phrenology that we have a bunch of subsystems in the mind that are in charge of different kinds of things. So that got abandoned too quickly. So he thought.
So we are in forbidden course territory.
This is right. It's probably a source of mockery. That's probably where the all of the accusations that evolutionary psychologists are looking for lumps in your skull come from. It was literally on the cover of Modularity of Mind was one of the old phrenology skulls with like every area mapped out.
Right. No, I've seen Django. So.
I forgot that was in Django. Yeah. So here was the central idea that Fodor was trying to promote. He believed that there were these subroutines, these computational submechanisms that were in charge of only a specific kind of information. They were adapted for, like they had actually,
Evolved.
Exactly. That these modules had evolved to serve a specific function. And he appealed to a lot of vision science in this. So he said, for instance, when you see a visual illusion, like the Mueller-Lyer illusion, where you have two lines that are of the same length, but they look like they're completely different because of the diagonal lines.
Yeah.
Or the shepherd table illusion, where you see two tables that are in different orientation and they look like they're completely different size and shape, but they're actually the same size and shape. He says, take these visual illusions and what your mind is doing, and I keep saying mind instead of brain for a reason, because he's really talking about the level of mind, not the level of brain.
Right.
He says, what's going on is that your visual system is paying attention to key pieces of information in the environment, and it's taking those into account, and it's popping out like a perception. It's saying these two tables are different size and shapes, or these two lines are of a different length, because the information that it's taking into account is, these visual illusions are designed to trick you into thinking that things are far apart when they're not, or whatever.
Yeah.
And importantly, even when you know that those two lines are the same exact length, they don't look like they are.
Right. Right.
And
so they're kind of separated from each other. Like the two, this is what they call informational encapsulation.
That's right.
Like the knowledge from one module can't reach the knowledge from the other.
That's
or
right.
The perception.
Your general beliefs, your thoughts, your desires, they can't creep into the little computational process that's going on that's making you see those lines a different length, no matter what.
By the way, like we can post a link to the paper that led to this discussion, and in that they do a visual illusion that I've never seen before called Terror Subterra, and it's just this what looks like a big giant chasing like a little giant through a tunnel, and this is better than Mueller-Lyer to like.
Yeah.
I cannot see them as anywhere close to the same size. Like I've tried to and I can't.
Yeah, it's an amazing illusion. I don't know if I had seen it. If I had seen it, I'd certainly forgotten about it. Yeah. And it's because again, there are lines that are converging in the distance that trick you into thinking that the one in the back is much farther away, so you see it as bigger.
Like Mueller-Lyer, I can kind of, even though it doesn't look that way, but this one is just like, I don't believe it. Like it can't be the same size. So it's a great example of what they're talking about.
Right.
These two things not being able to be in contact with each other or to get it to some, centralized processing, information processing entity.
Right. And so for Fodor, this was like super important for things like visual perception. And in particular, there was another set of studies, not the behaviorism stuff, but another source of motivation for Fodor was that in the 40s and 50s, there was this work on what people have called the new look in perception. A psychologist named Jerome Bruner, who had argued that your basic perceptions can change as a result of your beliefs and desires. And he did these famous studies where he had rich kids and poor kids draw a quarter, like just a 25-cent American coin, and he found that poor kids drew them to be bigger than rich kids. And what he argued was that this is because, for poor kids, like it was more money, like it represented more. And so they drew them as bigger. In fact, he did this in a number of different ways. And for Fodor, which he says at some point in the précis that he wrote for his book, he says, this thought shook him because if it's true, it would mean that we couldn't agree on the most basic perceptual facts of the world. And he even explicitly says, and I don't want relativism of that sort to be true. So I want this to be true.
Right. And in criticisms of the modular view, and I don't know what the status of these experiments are, but I remember Jesse Prince talking about it in some talk where the Mueller-Lyer illusion doesn't work as well for like tribal communities that don't live in environments where there are corners,
right? Like right angles,
straight line, right angle. Yeah, exactly. So that would, I guess, speak against the modular.
Yeah. Although I've never understood that line of attack because, maybe it is true. I believe that it's probably true that we need, people who see the Mueller-Lyer in particular relies on the outward turning lines and inward turning lines that look like you're seeing a building from the outside or from the inside. And so it's providing different information. But like the one that we're looking at, the Roger Shepard terror sub terra, like, I'm sorry, I got that. I don't believe that there's going to be any culture that doesn't see, doesn't see that.
I mean, I don't believe it, but I guess, and I don't even know what would, because any culture would have access to caves. And, but I guess the idea of these objections is that culture and environment matter more than what these accounts can admit.
Right. I think that a reasonable view might be that in some cases, the environment and cultural upbringing make a difference in how we see these things. But in a lot of cases, it's probably not. So really, then the debate becomes about what's modular and what's not. Like how much of the visual system, for instance, is modular. But okay, so Brunner has all these studies arguing for this new look in perception, basically saying that desires and beliefs, what we would call higher level cognitive processes or central processes, like your thinking, your beliefs, your desires, your wishes, that they would influence something as basic as perception. Fodor thought was wrong. And so he was sort of attacking both of those things, like the general purpose associationistic view and the new look in perception view in proposing this. So for Fodor, he said these little subcomponents, and he didn't even try to say, he relied on visual perception, and he said that's probably true for other stuff too. But he really wasn't trying to outline how much of the mind would be modular. Right. He was just trying to propose that at least some of it is. He said that these modules were like little computational subroutines that were separate from central cognitive functioning, informationally encapsulated, or as some people say, cognitively impenetrable, which is so hilarious.
Right.
Yeah. And that it would be automatic. So that is, you wouldn't notice that it's going on. Like right now, we're not aware of the computations our brain is doing when we see this illusion. And that informational encapsulation is what everybody understands to be the central feature of a Fodorian module. So, okay, we have that. So the idea of the modular view of the mind, that the mind has these mental modules that are domain specific, meaning that it's like dedicated to vision or hearing or language or whatever, kind of took fire. And a lot of people in cognitive psychology and in cognitive science in general sort of ran with this idea. So there's a lot of work in visual perception describing the computations that these modules make, right? Exactly how they work. In the intervening years, as evolutionary psychology grew, they also appealed to the concept of a module. And it's unclear to me whether the first evolutionary psychologists to talk this way were explicitly appealing to Fodorian modules or not, but they started referring to all kinds of mental processes as modular. And famously sort of Pinker's book, How the Mind Works. It's a good example of this. So Pinker has chapters on like love and emotions. He has chapters on morality. And he argues, or he claims, that we can understand all of these processes as modular. And modular here meaning at least the domain specific, like he thinks that your emotions adapted to compute a particular kind of information in the environment, like fear is giving you is a response to certain kinds of risks in the environment, and that these happen automatically and quickly, and that they were selected for it. That natural selection divided up the mind into a bunch of little things, and in those little things are included even like why we argue, shit like that. Like our combativeness is a result of the organization that evolution gave us.
And this is the like controversial area where it'd be like your attraction to younger women with a certain hip to waist ratio or something like that, right? Yeah. Or, even the idea that love is a kind of feeling to get parental investment or something like that.
All that stuff, or sexual jealousy in men, for instance, right?
More than women.
Yeah. Right. And so the reasoning that evolutionary psychologists were going for was, look, let's agree that biological organisms like humans are the product of natural selection. Okay, like that's step one. This means that whatever the mind is a result of natural selection as well. And just sort of logically, what you have left is that everything that you can observe in human beings and their biological and mental systems is either an adaptation, or it's a byproduct of adaptation, or as the authors of this paper say, it's noise.
Right.
And they argued that selective pressures would have created a bunch of different systems that really would take into account these different domains of information and problem solve. So they said, look, human beings experienced regular problems enough that the mind in some ways evolved to handle them. And so this is why they talk about the environment of evolutionary adaptiveness, and they care about, what was going on when we were evolving. And it's almost just like a natural result of the view that the mind was selected for in specific ways that you might think that it's functionally organized and separate in this modular way.
Right. So here's an example that people, like back when I was learning about this stuff, like the sweet tooth. Yeah. So in our environment of evolutionary adaptiveness, it was really good to eat berries and things that were sweet. They gave you all sorts of vitamins. And so we developed this module that found sweet things tasty.
Right.
And then, 200,000 years pass. We still have this module for the sweet tooth, but now it's like, German chocolate cake and Baskin-Robbins chocolate chip ice cream and all this stuff that's not good for you. But like with the visual illusion, where we can't, even though we know it's not good for us, it still tastes good, because this is that informational encapsulation thing where it's like we can't affect our knowledge of nutrition or whatever our doctor tells us can't affect the fact that tastes fucking good.
Right.
And you want more of it. And even though it's not adaptive, the way to understand that is to understand that the environment was different.
That's right.
Back in the day.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So things like aggression, if you can tell the story of ancestors who were more likely to survive because they aggressed against people who did them wrong, then you have a system like this system that would have favored aggression. And just by what it means to say you have a system that favored aggression, they're referring to this as modular.
Today's episode is brought to you by one of my favorite sponsors, chess.com. Everybody's playing chess these days. Why wouldn't you? And especially on chess.com, their numbers have grown 5 times since 2020. The pandemic has been good to them, and it's been good to me. And, well, not the pandemic, actually. Chess.com has been good.
You're not
to me.
Jeff Bezos.
Exactly. Or like pharmaceutical. But yeah, it's free. It's easy to play. You can play your friends. You can play your family. You can play strangers. Lately, I've been playing some listeners. I can't play all of them. I get a bunch of challenges usually now every day, but I try to play when I can. And improving your chess game is easy on chess.com. After you play your game, I do this all the time. You have a computer go through, tell you when you were a bonehead, tell you when you made a great move, tell you when you made the best move or what move would have been better, and you can play out the game if you had played the better world in like this hypothetical possible world where you had played the better move.
Are you sure you're not feeding the AIs so that eventually they become smarter than us?
I think I probably am. Except that if they look at my games, they'll just become too dumb to take over the world. So that's good. So I'm doing my part to stop the existential threat of AI. I have a diamond membership at chess.com, which gives me unlimited puzzles. Oh, I haven't even talked about the puzzles. They have over 50,000 chess puzzles, which is good because I've done almost that many. Unlimited lessons, unlimited game analysis, and more. And I absolutely love it. And I've been doing it for over 15 years. So check out chess.com. They have speed games, low pressure, fun games. You can play on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer, all your devices. And yeah, just do it. Join up. Improve your chess game. Head over to chess.com/verybad. Just chess.com/verybad. No wizards at the end. And start playing. That's chess.com/verybad to start playing your friends, your family, and learning how to play chess today. Thank you to chess.com for sponsoring this episode.
Now, at this point is where I was introduced to this whole debate. And I have to admit, one of the reasons that I really like this paper is that it kind of set me straight about this debate, because I would read evolutionary psychologists like Tobias Cosmides and Rob Kurzban, who would talk about things like emotions being modules. And it never made sense to me. I thought it was profoundly dumb to say that, because an emotion, of all things, is open to information from your central processing, right? Like, my emotions change all the time depending on what I believe and what I know. Like, it's almost like ridiculous to think that they would be informationally encapsulated. And then they would say, no, we don't mean a Fodorian module. Like, we don't mean an informationally encapsulated module. And I would say, well, then why the fuck are you using the word module, right? Because this is what a module means. Fodor is the one who like made this shit what it is.
But wait, I want to understand your objection before we get to like how the levels of analysis are different. Because while emotions are certainly open to being revised in light of information from central processing, there are certain things like jealousy, one might argue, or, you know, just like a feeling of outrage and resentment and aggression if you're insulted or disrespected, or certain things that, like, it's much at least harder for whatever information to break through your just natural reaction to those things, or just loving your child. You know, like, there's not that much information that's going to make you not love Bella.
Right.
You know?
Right. Okay, good. So it turned to me on the understanding of what information, like central cognitive information, is. So for me, the knowledge that your wife, Jen, is cheating on you is what caused your jealousy. If you were to change that belief...
Wait, time out. What do you know? What do you know that I don't?
I thought that compersion... I thought that natural selection had given us compersion by now.
Yeah, I didn't evolve compersion. So...
wouldn't it be funny if different people had different evolutionary sort of like...
trees.
Yeah. So So, sorry, I just realized we lapsed right into racism with that one.
Well, we're trying to get on to the forbidden 2022 forbidden courses. I want a guest spot for like $100,000.
So for me, that was central. Like that kind of information is what I was thinking. Not to mention that you can also regulate your emotions with something more willful, but even just the like knowledge that, people who, if maybe now would be too late, but you can imagine that you have a baby and you're like, oh my God, I love it. And then somebody says DNA test shows it's not yours. And you'd be like, fuck it, I'm out. That kind of information is a belief in the way that I would consider a top-down or a cognitive penetration of the modular system. So, and I remember arguing with Rob Kurzban about this stuff and not understanding how, like, why they were even appealing to modules. And Pinker the same. So Pinker writes this book, How the Mind Works, right? And other people were at the time also proposing this sort of massive modular account of the mind. And Fodor hated it. So Fodor says, look, man, I was talking about like maybe a handful of of more basic cognitive faculties like perception, maybe language, whatever. Not this shit that Pinker's talking about, that like love is modular. That didn't even make sense to him.
Right.
And so he writes a book called, so Pinker's book was How the Mind Works. Fodor published a book called literally The Mind Doesn't Work That Way. Right. Which is petty and awesome at the same time, I guess.
Like a lot of Fodor, petty and awesome at the same time.
So the debates started there, and this paper that we're at now, that why evolutionary psychology should abandon modularity, is an attempt to offer a way out of this debate. So what the authors are trying to argue broadly is that the reason that evolutionary psychologists and sort of Fodorian cognitive scientists, the reason that they're disagreeing so bitterly is because they've been talking about two completely different kinds of processes, two different levels of analysis. So we can get into that. But like at this point, is that explanation about modules enough?
Yes, very, very much so.
Okay.
That was outstanding.
Thank you. A little bit of history of science too. So when I went to grad school, Paul Bloom had just arrived and Frank Kyle had been there. Sorry, Paul Bloom arrived like my second year. Frank Kyle arrived my first year maybe. And they were hiring people. They hired a cognitive psychologist named Brian Scholl who does visual stuff.
Oh yeah, I know him.
So he's actually like his advisor was this big guy in visual perception, and they full on were of the modular view. This view is, as I mentioned before, deeply tied to nativism, right? So you are born with these modules as opposed to the associationistic views. And so I was sort of instructed by Frank Kyle and Paul Bloom, hardcore nativists.
Can you just say briefly, if that's possible, like what that means?
What
hardcore
nativism
nativist?
means? Yeah. So people like Paul Bloom and Frank Kyle believe that infants are born with all sorts of concepts already baked into the brain, into the mind. It's concept of numeracy. Paul even at one point was arguing that basic moral perceptions about like good and bad, that these you're just born with them and they unfold, but they're there. Meanwhile, there's like a whole different brand of cognitive science. So MIT was always like the Chomsky and those guys were always associated with nativism. And over at UC San Diego, you had like the hotbed of a rebirth of empiricism, and never the twain would meet. Like they actually just beefed with each other a lot. So
what would be a debate that they would have like
language? Language is a hotbed of this. So is language the result of a dedicated computational process? So Chomsky argued, of course, because if you look at how quickly children acquire language and you look at how much input they've had, there is no way that they could have just acquired this by rote, like brute learning. He thought that the brain was obviously biased toward picking up grammar. And he thought that the rules of grammar were in the mind already. And then other people who study language learning thought, no, the same way that you learn whatever is how you learn language. And it's might not be through reward and punishment like Skinner thought, but it's just through statistical learning. And so they would do computational models trying to show that children by the time, whatever, their age 2 have been able to acquire the rules of grammar. It's not necessary to argue that the rules had to be in there because there's plenty enough information. So a general system like statistical learning that results in all knowledge, it was in charge of language. Right.
So the fact that children can so much more easily learn language than adults, like which side does that favor? Or can both sides explain that equally well enough?
It's a good question. I think both sides can explain it in a different way. So the people who appeal to the general learning mechanisms, like statistical learning, would appeal to the plasticity of the brain, it's just more malleable early in life. And
right.
I think then you have these people who believe that there are these critical periods that I think are more likely to be the nativists, that the modules are extra sensitive early in life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And where is Fodor on that?
So
because
Yeah, I think Fodor believed that language wasn't it. I think he was buddy with
innate
Chomsky.
modules.
Yeah.
Chomsky, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, Pinker and Paul Bloom had an argument with Chomsky. They had a debate with Chomsky, and one of Paul's early publications was an attack on Chomsky, not because they disagreed about the modularity. They were all on the same side in terms of nativism and modularity. Chomsky just believed that language module was a complete accident. It was just a blip, and that it unlocked this thing. And
I see.
Pinker and
Right.
Bloom believed that there would have been selective pressures to create a language module.
But Fodor did really jump ship when it came to modules for beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm. He thought it was an abuse of his view, that it was taking what he said and misapplying it. He was really opposed to using the concept of modules to explain really any social behavior or social life, but most higher level things. He's like, no, like we also have a central processor, like our when we think and
Right.
we reason, it's not modular at all.
So our philosophical brain is
That's
not
right.
modular. It's just our
Except for maybe trolley problems. Those are obviously modular and selected
Clearly.
for. Well, when we encountered trolley switches in the environment of early adaptiveness.
Right, that's the thing. It wasn't adaptive to switch, or it was.
It was adaptive to switch. It wasn't adaptive to push, I guess.
It wasn't adaptive to push because overweight people are more likely to have aggressive family members that will come and get revenge.
They would have beat your ass.
Yeah.
I love that explanation. The intuition is weaker.
They're all sugared up, those people.
That's why the intuition is weaker if you describe him as a man wearing a big backpack. I could probably take him. I could probably take his relatives. That's. I bet you somebody has proposed that.
Maybe. So say why they're talking past each other because of different levels of analysis.
Yeah. So this paper tries to demonstrate that this whole time, this debate has been just a confusion about levels of analysis. So in order to do that, they present, I guess, this distinction in levels of explanation for the mind that they borrow from Dennett and somebody named Marr, who I don't know. And they say there are 3 different ways that are not necessarily inconsistent with each other that you would describe something like mental life or psychology. But by the way, did you find this paper to be a little bit exaggerating?
Yeah. Although it was hard to pin down exactly why.
They were saying this is perhaps been the biggest setback in all of psychology, even more than the replication crisis. This has set back
I'm such a good audience though for methodological fuck ups, being responsible for I want this, take me, ravage me with your methodological criticism.
Okay, so 3 levels of analysis. They say there's the intentional level, the functional level, and the implementational level. The intentional level, I think, a lot of people know about this, the intentional stance that Dan Dennett talks about, where when you're describing, say, why did Tamler say that, you appeal to belief desire psychology. Say Tamler wanted to do that. He thought this. He believed it. That intentional level is, to quote the paper, by the way, I didn't even say the name, David Pietraszewski, I'm sorry, and Annie Wertz are the authors. That intentional level is, so they say this level also contains the first person phenomenology of how things feel and includes mental states such as emotions, beliefs, thoughts, desires, and so on. So you can have a whole sort of theory of causality that appeals to intentions and desires. And it makes sense to say, you know, why did I drop this? Because I wanted to. It's not wrong to say that. It's just a very high level of description.
And it's also like knowing a little bit about this, the Dennett stuff on this. It's like how we sometimes successfully, sometimes not. What we use to predict people's behavior is to kind of think,
right.
Well, this is what they believe, this is what they want, and so I think they'll do this.
Yep.
And we're just talking about their psychology as we understand our own psychology. That's how I understand how I act is, you know, I want to take an edible so that I will find Succession even funnier, you know, or whatever, or Curb. You know, so like now, obviously this isn't true all the time, but we understand ourselves as acting according, you know, at this level. And so we assume that other people are going to act like that and we can understand it.
Right. And they have like causal, you know, that this has some sort of causal influence on like their motor movements, right? When you go get your edible, your arms moving are a result of you wanting to get that edible.
Right.
It's like folk psychology. And it would be
folk psychology.
Yeah, and it would be weird to say, no, Tamler didn't take the edible because he wanted to. He took the edible because, you know, his hippocampus was firing in this particular way, right? You'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure, like we always say, like, I'm sure the brain did it, but yeah.
You know what's so funny is that I was just lecturing on Plato's dialogue, The Phaedo, and he makes this exact point. Like he makes this distinction between levels of explanation and analysis. He says if somebody wants to know, the Phaedo is when he's about to die, and he's, you know, like it's the dialogue that takes place right before he drinks the hemlock, and it ends with him drinking the hemlock, and it's beautiful. And he says if somebody wants to know like why I'm here in this prison cell about to drink the hemlock, and they start talking about like my bones and sinews and like flesh, like that's not going to answer the question.
Right.
The thing that answers the question is the Athenian jury thought it best for me to be sentenced to this, and I thought it best not to escape, and so that's why I'm here. So it's like already then there was this idea that there are different levels of explanation, and some are more suitable to tell you what you want to know.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Yes, exactly. And you know, the authors in this paper say we're talking about modularity, but we think this is a deep problem in all of psychology. And when you think about it, this is the complaint that we've often made when people talk about neuroscience and they say, well, your brain did it. And you're like, well, like that doesn't supervene on the fact that I wanted to do it. Like it doesn't.
Right. And that's true of literally everything that I do.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's not that insightful unless you want to know about the brain. And
it doesn't actually explain what.
Right. And the attitude that it somehow is a better explanation or the more scientific explanation is a silly one. It's just a different explanation.
It's just different levels of explanation. Yeah. There are questions that it would be appropriate to invoke that. But yes, this kind of confusion happens a lot.
Right.
So how is that happening here?
So then it's important for this, when we get back to why this is a problem, that the intentional stance holds the agent as central, the I. The agent is what's understood to be experiencing what their brain is doing, all that stuff. Because we'll get back to that. So that if you pop down one level, you get to what they call the functional level of analysis. The functional level of analysis, I guess maybe named after functionalism of some sort, is still a layer of abstraction. It's not your brain cells firing, but it is a description of all of the subsystems that make who you are. So here is where you would include, you know, there is some part of your brain that's responsible for long-term memory, some part for short-term memory. But that the brain parts don't matter nearly as much as the fact that there is this level that we call short-term memory, long-term memory. You have describing what's going on in the brain as computational, like inputs and outputs.
Let me ask you about this, because according to the authors, this corresponds to what Dennett called the design stance,
Right.
which I understood as like, this is what this mechanism is for. Like, this is why it exists, is so it can do this kind of things. Is that right?
I don't remember how Dennett talks about it, but it seems to make sense, because what I think they're saying is that you can view the mind as a whole bunch of these sub-processes that were probably selected for. And
Right.
you can explain all of those in terms of inputs, outputs. You say, like, you get this visual stimuli, you have this output. So at this sort of computational layer, this abstraction at the level of computation, where if you ask somebody about, like, well, where is Tamler? Like, you've just described to me, like, the 50 kinds of mechanisms that make up a mind. Which one of those is Tamler? You would say, well, that doesn't make any sense, because they're all Tamler. But we're not talking about Tamler. We're talking about, like, how the mind is computing inputs and outputs.
But so, like, let's say whatever the mechanism is, that if I put my hand in the fire will get me to immediately my body will immediately remove my hand from the fire. Is the proper functional level of analysis here, like, we have some sort of module that gets us to find aversive things that will do damage to our body.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's the way to say it.
And in that sense, it can be called the design stance without, it's not necessarily designed by natural selection, although, like, it seems plausible in a lot of these cases that that's why.
Right.
Yeah.
It's important to note that I think these people are evolutionary, like, people. So I think that if anything, they're going to be biased to saying that these are that these are selected for. So, okay, the quote, so they say this level corresponds to what Dennett has called the design stance and encompasses both of Mars' computational and algorithmic and representational levels. Causation at this level occurs because of the particular constellation of functions being carried out across different mechanisms and the abstract if-then causal relationships between mechanisms. And so I remember as an undergrad in psychology, when I learned about Chomsky's view of what he called the language acquisition device, I remember asking, so is that like a brain? Is that a part of the brain? And the answer was, well, that doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's a computational system, right?
Right.
And you could imagine, and I think this is maybe why they call it the functional level of analysis, you could imagine a system doing the same exact thing with the information of input and output, but being silicon-based, like a computer. It could be instantiated in any of a number of ways. What matters is the computation.
In your rectum.
Yeah. I'm an easy crowd. Okay, so the I doesn't make any sense here. Nobody's talking about, like, the intentional stance. Finally, the last one is just the physical stance. There, where you're actually talking about the physical instantiation, like
the
neurons, the networks of neurons, the molecules that make up the neurons, the electrochemical processes that are firing in the brain. That is the bottom level. That is the most basic level of analysis. So hopefully it makes it clear that you can talk about any given psychological process in any of these three ways and not be inconsistent. Okay, so here now we have the tools to understand what's going on according to these authors, which I'm convinced by. They say the reason that these two camps have been fighting with each other for the last 20 or whatever years or 30 years is that they've been actually using different levels of analysis and not realizing it or never making it explicit. And they think, again, that this is actually a problem in a lot of debates in psychology. And so here's the insight, which I actually I feel like I learned from this insight. When Fodor describes modularity in the Fodorian sense, where he says that there is no top-down influence, there is no cognitive penetrability, beliefs and desires can't change your visual perception of the visual illusion. It is using the intentional stance. And it sounds like he's only at the functional level. Like I would have said, it's the functional level because it's a bunch of different systems that he's talking about. But it doesn't make sense to say that you don't have influence from your central cognitive processing or your beliefs and desires unless you're appealing to the intentional stance, to the I. When I say I believe that coins are bigger and therefore I see them as bigger, that is absolutely referring to the I level.
Right. So there's something about even saying I can't get myself to see the two people chasing each other as the same size, that it just is intentional stance,
Exactly.
Essentially.
Exactly. Yeah. And that that great way to put it, I can't get myself to see it this way, is the only way that Fodorian modularity of this encapsulated way makes any sense. Because Fodor was literally just saying, I can't change the way that my visual system works.
Right. I mean, I guess, right. So are you saying then that just the whole idea of a central intelligence processing kind of can only make sense in from the intentional stance perspective?
Because of what he means by central processing, because what he's including in what he calls whatever central processing is your beliefs and your desires. Those just are the things that we would, how we would describe something in the intentional way. Because your systems don't have beliefs.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You have beliefs.
Right. So if you're talking about your computer, it wouldn't make sense to say your computer can't see this thing.
Exactly.
Like you would just talk about the different systems, and
that's right.
You're already kind of at the functional level unless you're speaking. Yeah, I guess like metaphorically or something like that. No, we're not as naturally inclined to do that with computers as we are.
That's right. That's actually a great example. I was trying to figure out like how to explain this part, which is in the computer example, to say that your computer can't tell how the graphics are being processed is just a weird thing to say. Obviously, part of your computer is processing the graphics, and part of it is like whatever in charge of other background processes, and so it makes no sense to divide up the computer into the central and then the other stuff. And the whole notion of top-down influence or informational encapsulation doesn't make sense if we're popping down into the functional level. So it doesn't make sense to say the graphics processor of your computer is informationally encapsulated. Because you would just say, from what? Like the graphics processor is doing what it's supposed to do. The other thing is doing what it's supposed to do. The notion of encapsulation doesn't make sense because you have to be encapsulated from something. And the inputs and outputs of all those systems are just the inputs and outputs of the system. So if I said... But
can't they be encapsulated from each other, from the different... like other things that a computer can do, like the display?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They could have... Now imagine that you have like the graphics system and that you have, I don't know, I'm no shit about computers to say this, but let's say that they're...
Audio system.
Yeah, the audio, good. So you have the graphics processor and you have the audio processor and they're taking different inputs. You could say that one is informationally encapsulated from the other, but it doesn't do much work because all that they've done is program the visual system, the graphic system to take this information and program the audio system to take that information. And the notion of encapsulation doesn't help much above and beyond inputs and outputs. You just describe what's feeding into the graphics card, what's feeding into the audio card. There's the whole, and that's the insight. That's the insight.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's that it does you no good to describe the functional layer in terms of encapsulation. And that is what they say evolutionary psychologists have been saying this whole time. They've been saying that's the reason that we don't use the term module in the Fodorian sense, because they believe that they are talking at the functional layer of all these systems that have evolved. And so there's no real argument between these two. It's just they've talked past each other. This episode of Very Bad Wizards is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Check them out at betterhelp.com/VBW. Tamler, do you think that they'll finally let us do couples counseling, even if we're not really go?
That's a great question. I mean, we
should try to sign up. We have a coupon code. We should really go on and see if they'll talk.
We have a lot to iron out, though.
Yeah. But maybe you have a similar relationship in your life. Just people who you're completely dependent on, but sometimes get under your skin.
Don't get along with at all.
If you do, you should try BetterHelp. BetterHelp is customized online therapy. They offer video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's the ultimate in pandemic therapy. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy. You can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. These are licensed professionals who are there to help you out. And importantly, I think people really need to know this. If you don't like the therapist that you have, you can always switch. Ask them to switch. It's not always going to be a great fit, but you don't have to stick with them. So unload your stressors in life, get some unbiased feedback. You'll be pretty surprised at what you might gain from it. So see if it's for you. This podcast, again, is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Very Bad Wizards listeners get 10% off their first month if they go to betterhelp.com/VBW. That's BetterHelp.com/VBW, and you'll get 10% off your first month. Our thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode of Very Bad Wizards.
Okay, I have a couple questions about this. I feel like I get it blurrily.
Right.
So something like, how would you apply this to something like the debate over the cheater detection module, say?
Yeah.
Are evolutionary psychologists saying that cheater detection module is just at the functional level, and the people who are saying this is bullshit, this is how does this explain, say, that
Good.
debate?
So we can appeal to what I would have said before reading this article, which is what I said about emotions, which is, how are you going to tell me that the cheater detection module is a module when obviously, in some of those tasks where you're trying to detect the cheaters, you're effortfully trying to figure it out. That's, to me, that's not modular, right? There is no informational encapsulation. And so what they would say is, what we mean is that there were selective pressures to make a subsystem that's really good at taking this particular information and then outputting this particular information. And there is no central you or I, because it's all just subsystems. They believe all of the mind is like that. So you have a memory system, you have a cheater detection system, you have whatever, the emotion, all of those systems work in tandem to make you, but to rely on, again, the notion of encapsulation would mean that the evolutionary psychologists are popping into the intentional level and saying that evolution gave us an I, and that's at the same level as the cheater detection module.
Right. That's okay. And I think the reason why this is so hard for us to understand is it's not like we think of ourselves as I's. And so even just thinking about something like a cheater detection, it's hard to think about that.
Right.
Like if you're not you, it's hard to think about whether you would, be able to spot the, person that's drinking at a bar that's not 21 or whatever.
Right.
Because that's the whole point.
Yeah.
That you can do it, and so
it makes sense why it wouldn't be that difficult to understand visual perception. I kind of get that's a module. But when you get to emotions, they're even the way we talk about, say, emotions is so intentional when we say, I felt this.
Right.
That
it doesn't even make it. Yeah, it's hard to even make sense of what it means if you're not at the intentional.
Right. And so what they really are talking about is what we mean is that early humans had enough encounters with in risky situations with a predator or with heights that this system evolved to get triggered and kick in a fight or flight response when that information is processed from the environment. And you know what? You are just all of those processes that we're describing. There's no you, it doesn't make sense to talk about you. You're just a bunch of subroutines. At some level, right? We're all a bunch of subroutines anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm wondering though then whether even just the interest in evolutionary psychology almost presumes a kind of intentional stance view in the sense that I don't know, this is hard for me to describe, but when you just said that, it's, if you're going to talk about, emotions and cheater detection and these things that we just naturally associate with I in these other terms, then why is this just different than people who are working on, the mechanistic level, neuronal, like visual processing stuff that doesn't strike me as counterintuitive or controversial, but it's just like under the hood stuff.
Yeah.
That isn't that I can't connect with, because for me to connect with something, I have to think of me. And for me to even be like fully satisfied with an explanation, I have to think about it intentionally.
I think you're pointing to something that I hadn't thought about, which the authors don't talk about, again, because I think they lean toward the evolutionary psychology functional. So the computational theory of mind is what's underlying all this, that you have this non-physical but computational layer of stuff that's going on. I think that what you're pointing to is that they're sort of bastardizing the concepts of emotions and whatever in only saying that they're at the functional level. The subjective experience of emotion, that there is an I that's experiencing the emotion, seems so central to our lay understanding.
The concept. Yeah.
That it's hard to just think about the computational layer. They really do want to, though. They want to say, no, we don't mean the like subjective, that I felt jealousy. We meant that you got this input from the environment and that this, that it produced this output. That's just a subsystem in your brain. They don't want to appeal at all to that intentional layer.
But then it's like, are you explaining anger then, or are you just saying ones and zeros here and ones and zeros there?
They think I think that they think that they're explaining whatever it might be, cheater detection or anger. I think that they think that they're pointing to the computations that are going on. So much like in the Mueller-Lyer illusion or in these other size illusions where the input is the parallel lines converging in the distance that produce this illusion. They just want to use that same language to say, thinking about when men think about their wives fucking another guy, this response kicks in. And that response leads to certain kinds of behaviors, like keeping them away from other men so they won't get cuckolded. So while there is the I that's doing it, they don't care. To them, it's just like, well, this is just the system that's in charge of preventing cuckoldry. And that was the system that was in charge of distance perception. I don't buy, like I have trouble with it too. Like, I don't like this way of talking about emotions. I don't think I don't think it's adding too much. I think it's just describing. But I think that they just want it all. And hence the massive modularity. They want it all to be modular.
I guess like it reminds me then of the Plato thing. Are they just telling like the bones and sinews, and like the whole cheater detection idea only makes sense in light of the intentional stance, as opposed to it just. I guess though you could talk about it in terms of like just sets of behaviors. Like, I guess you can talk about it in terms of input outputs, but to even start using terms like cheater detection or jealousy or something like that, at a certain, like for some of these things, you're just presuming that there is a detector or a somebody who's jealous, right? Like,
well, in our language,
it's hard to talk about.
It is hard to talk about it. So here's, I was just thinking of maybe a way to say it. So when I hear, remember that crazy article we read about like sperm detection from oral sex, right?
Yes.
So like they're saying, okay, there's a system that like when cum is tasted, it kicks in a desire to keep your, your partner around because you don't want them to like, see, I can't even say it without appealing.
So you're going to go to town.
Yeah. I say, well, that's a crazy explanation. Like the reason that maybe I would not want my partner to talk to an attractive guy is because I personally don't want them to leave me. Like that's the way I think about it. And I think that maybe a lot of these emotional mechanisms are best thought of as that. Just I have reasons. And I might say, you're confusing that there is a general purpose central processing unit that is just doing things like figuring out how the world works and what I want and what I don't. And what I don't want is for my wife to leave me. So if I believe that she might leave me, I will have a reason to do this thing. And they're talking about it in terms of these subsystems. So what they say is, well, yeah, but even you're talking about your beliefs and desires about your wife is missing the point. What we're saying is that the thing that is giving you your beliefs and desires about this situation is this mechanism that was selected for.
We're saying the tongue module is going to be like...
It's the cum taste module.
It's
a fact, actually, that if you put a little bit of cum on a baby's tongue, they immediately know that they're being cuckolded. That's terrible.
Were you able to understand their example of the modularity mistake, the Barrett, I guess Lisa Feldman Barrett and Kurzban with Chiap and Gardner? Like, because I had trouble figuring that out as how this was a great illustration of this talking past each other.
Which one?
So this is on page 16.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is an exchange between the evolutionary people and the Fodorian people, and
the Fodorian people being Chiap and Gardner. Yeah.
Where they say, when you're talking about, I don't remember what they're talking about here. So I haven't used this phrase, but
system one, system two stuff.
So they're saying, like the discussion we just had about whatever, detecting that your wife is cheating on you or whatever. You could say, well, no, what you're confusing is system one, system two stuff. So system one might be automatic stuff that could be described as modular, but you have system two, which is your general reasoning, right? You have the ability to think hard about something and decide whether or not you, want to take the action. And so maybe what you're calling modules is just an example of system one stuff, that fast automatic stuff that maybe it's a heuristic, maybe whatever. It's like a computation that's being done automatically. For the evolutionary people, system one, system two doesn't make any sense in the same way that general cognition and Fodorian modules don't make sense. For them, system two really is kind of an intentional stance. It's effortful, is appealing to thinking hard and trying and deliberating, that is directly appealing to the eye. So they would just say, no, all you're describing is different modules. There's maybe there's a reasoning module. There's a
right. And just to talk about system two presumes this central eye.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of this example of levels of analysis sort of explains why there's a lot of brain people and cognitive psych people who hate system one, system two, and their critique is usually something like, there is no system one in the brain, right? Or system two is a whole bunch of things. What they don't realize is they're just popping up, when people talk about system two and system one, it's just popping up a layer of abstraction, right? It's not really saying anything about the brain. No, none of those people think they're saying anything about the brain. Well, they shouldn't, at least.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So here's maybe something that will help about the evolutionary psychology thing. Evolutionary psychology proposes that an entire bounded computer exists for each problem that the mind is designed to solve, and every problem has a design solution for them.
Right. But that seems implausible, right? Or not?
Well, it's implausible in maybe in some sense, but not in the sense that they want to appeal to, which is, are you saying, and I've had conversations with Rob Kurzban, I remember, that frustrated me because he would say, are you saying that somehow natural selection didn't produce the mind? And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying.
But it's not like every problem solved. It's not a solution for every problem, right? There's got to be some stuff that you have to, it's just collateral damage, or it's a byproduct.
Yeah, no, it could be a byproduct. Sorry, that whatever, natural selection just caused everything in some way or another. And so this quote is, an entire bounded computer exists for each problem that the mind is designed to solve. And I suppose that there are things that the mind isn't designed to solve, but that could by mistake. But they're very, very wed to this idea that it's all functional adaptation. These are all functional systems.
All right, interesting. Like, I think I get it. It is a very elusive thing, and I think the reason why it's elusive is because we so naturally are just kind of magnetically drawn to seeing this in terms, like intentional stance terms.
Yeah.
And so when you're telling us not to do that, it's very hard to get our minds around it.
That's right.
Like, that's my.
And I think that the difficulty that we're having is, I think, if they're right in this analysis, this is the difficulty that everybody's been having,
right. And this is why there's a lot of careers have been made and on this difficulty, like just kind of not noticing.
That's right. Yeah. I just want to read this. Like, I'm going to conclude with this as they conclude. Confusing or collapsing across different levels of analysis is not just a problem for modularity in evolutionary psychology. Rather, it is the greatest problem facing early 21st century psychology, dwarfing even the current replication crisis.
I would argue it's the greatest problem facing like humanity right now. It's like the greatest problem like civilization has ever faced, like besides wokeness.
Only somebody were brave enough to talk about this.
Yeah. Well, this is just a taste of what you'll learn.
No, we're gonna
like this is a teaser.
We're gonna
for,
start
like,
our own
the forbidden.
We're gonna start our own university with forbidden topics, but the forbidden topics will be very, very different.
Very Bad Wizards University. You know what? Like, we couldn't wait for the cavalry to come, so we are the cavalry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, join us next time for another fearless, ideologically free exploration of another topic.
Yeah, of some other minutia of the field. We're gonna take apart the type token distinction next time. Dare us?
Oh,
Dare us?
Shit! Oh no! Don't go. Get the Substack ready. Join us next time.
The great and honest has spoken. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Who are you? Who are you? A very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Good man. They think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have. Pay no attention to that man. Anybody can have a brain.
You're a very bad man.
I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard.